Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of the Auto Detailing Podcast. I'm Jimbo, and today we're going to be talking about why the future of detailing has nothing to do with dry ice. Now, dry ice has kind of slowly come onto the scene of the detailing space. I've got to work with it hands-on. I got a great demo from Jason and Eric over at Chicago Auto Pros, and I saw their sales pitch on it. Eric was very enthusiastic about it. They're actually doing dry ice at Chicago Auto Pros. But as I, have now gone through SEMA, I saw it back then. That was back in March, April, May-ish, I guess, whenever I went out to that creator event that Jason held. But dry ice is definitely, in my opinion, not the future of detailing. And in this podcast episode, I'm going to talk about why. I'm going to explain what dry ice even is, where I think the current market is for it, and then where I think it could work its way into detailing. I just don't think we're there yet. So as a lot of people are starting to pump dry ice, is it's starting to get a little bit of buzz, but it's kind of like flatline seemingly right now because no one's really no one's bought into it yet, right? Everyone's still kind of on the sidelines of like, I'm not sure. And so in this podcast episode, we're going to talk about that, why people are unsure, why the barrier of entry may be too high and it may be hindering people, but then also where there is some opportunity in that. There is opportunity in being a higher barrier to entry, but there are definitely some workflows and some workarounds that you're going to have to be prepared for. And then most importantly, I think it all comes down to the one thing that no one ever wants to focus on, and that's actually getting customers. So you're going to have to make sure you have a steady flow of customers to make sure that you're not eating money in this dry ice realm. Dry ice is basically a non-abrasive way to clean sensitive materials without using water, without using chemicals. So you're very, eco-friendly, and it's super, super effective at removing super tough grime, contaminants, years and years and years of buildup on something like a floor pan of a car, a wheel well, an engine bay. So if you're dealing with like an older car that has a really sensitive engine compartment, dry ice is great for that. And it's a really nice way to give a restored, fresh finish to the surface, especially on these sensitive components. And that's really where this dry ice is going to come in, and really where I think the market currently is for it, is on these very sensitive components. And why that kind of wraps around why I don't think it is the future of detailing, because when we talk about car washing and detailing, we're talking about usually a volume play and speed, and dry ice is kind of slow in that. There is an argument that by going slower, you're actually working faster, but in the few examples I saw, it's painstakingly slow. So just on the outset, if you do not like polishing paint because it's incredibly slow, dry ice is even slower. So for me, sitting there polishing paint is one of the most boring things you can do in detailing. And so for me personally, dry ice is even more boring, and it's super duper loud. So yeah, there is a high barrier to entry, like I mentioned in the kind of intro there. Right now it's super expensive, and there's no market leader for machine. So you have not only the cost and the high barrier for the machine, but then you also have to actually get the dry ice. So you usually get that delivered. Most metropolitan areas will have dry ice delivery available, and they give you a container. But that brings up another barrier to entry, is you need to have not only space for the machine itself, which is not very big, maybe this a little bit bigger than the size of a steamer, but then you have to have this giant box that stores the dry ice, and then you got to obviously pay for that dry ice and then have that bin stored, and then you have to get it replenished, which we will bring up later when I talk about, like I mentioned in the intro, how you need to have a steady flow of customers, because essentially if you get the dry ice delivered, which you're going to pay for, which is another ongoing expense to this, which is significantly more expensive than just having chemicals at your disposal or a pressure washer, let alone the machine. I think the machine are ranging from, gosh, if my memory serves me right, maybe like 15 grand upwards of like 30 grand. And so a significant investment just in the machine without a true market leader that I can understand from the market. So you have super expensive machines without a market leader or a market standard, again, as my understanding. And then you have this ongoing expense with having to actually get the dry ice delivered to your shop, and then making sure that you actually use all the dry ice that you've purchased, right? And so not only the equipment talk about training. So you have to be, you have to be trained on how to use these things, because like on one of the machines I saw, there's a light duty version and then a heavier duty version. But this is definitely something that you're going to want to get some hands-on training with, to make sure that you're handling the dry ice correctly, you're storing the dry ice correctly, you're putting it into the machine properly, you're maintaining the machine properly. And so this is definitely not like just go to Home Depot, buy some chemicals and start your detailing business. This is definitely like a very thought out, methodical process to not only buying the machine, but then properly maintaining it, and then also actually being able to use it on a car. So the contrast is wide from traditional detailing in terms of not only initial investment and startup costs, but training, and then ongoing investment. So the barrier to entry is significantly higher, and all these factors go into why I think that this is not the future of detailing, because in order for it to be the future of detailing, you really need to get the detailing market or the detailers to adapt and I don't know the word I'm looking for, but adopt, I guess, not adapt, but adapt and adopt this method of cleaning. And also this is not something that you can do, weekly on the paintwork. You don't need to. If you clean an engine, you're not going to need to clean that engine again next week. You're not going to need to, if you clean an interior with this, which I don't know if you would, it's very non-efficient in that way. But if you were to do that, because it's not efficient, it's not something you're going to do every time on the interior. So a lot of things that detailers forgot when ceramic coating started to get so hot was they forgot that the reoccurring revenue of a detailing customer, a customer of a detail shop, is the bread and butter, also known as cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood of a business. So you have to have cash flow in order for your business to succeed, for your business to even continue and then eventually succeed. And so dry ice, in my opinion, is one of those kind of not one and done necessarily, but pretty much one and done. I think the market for it, and again, I'll get to this later, the market for it is really in the restoration area right now. Now, I'm not saying this will never be a part of the detailing industry. I'm just saying right now it's not the future that I can see for all these factors that I'm mentioning. And so if you have a restoration shop or you do a lot of work with a restoration shop, dry ice may be a perfect fit for you to incorporate it into your detailing business. But you have to be aware of all the costs, the upfront cost and the ongoing cost, and then make sure that you have a continued market for that. So let me give you a great example. Joe Schmo is redoing their, Porsche, right? And they want to get it, they're getting the body sandblasted. They want to get the pan, or they want to just restore the engine. They need to get it, they're looking for a less aggressive option to sandblasting, and they come across dry ice. So Joe Schmo brings his car that he's going to restore to you to dry ice the pan, maybe the wheel wells, the caliper, whatever. Dry ice, sensitive components that have years and years and years of buildup, right? So sure, Joe Schmo brings it over. You charge him a couple grand to do it. He's super happy with it. But Joe Schmo isn't going to even complete that car for, I would say soonest a year or maybe multiple years, right? And Joe Schmo may be only working on one car at a time. So if you look at the lifetime value of Joe Schmo, the customer, it may only be $2,000, right? So as compared to Joe Schmo actually drove his Lexus to and from his house to your shop, or let's call it a truck because he had to tow the car that he's restoring. He brought a full-size truck over, and you ceramic coated that truck for $1,200, and he brings it in once a month for you to detail it, and you charge $250. So the lifetime value of Joe Schmo, the client, the detailing client, is significantly higher. In fact, you're going to make more off Joe Schmo detailing in the first year than you will most likely with doing the dry ice on his restored car, right? So you have to be very careful because cash flow is the lifeblood of every business. And so you have to know how much the lifetime value of your customer is, and then what are the options, or what are the opportunities rather, that the services that you offer to get you to a higher lifetime value of that customer. Your goal as a business owner is to get as much money as possible for as long as possible out of each and every one of your customers. I'm not saying rip your customers off. I'm just saying give an excuse for your customers to come see you so often. That's why car washes just kill it, right? Because they're seeing a mass amount of people all the time. Car washes are definitely where the market's at. And so you have to be careful with dry ice. And one of the biggest downfalls to dry ice is you just do not have that, from what I can see, you do not have that reoccurring revenue. You do not have that customer coming back multiple times per year, spending money with you like you do with traditional detailing services. And therefore, it's going to take longer to recoup your initial investment. It's going to take more customers to create that cash flow in your business. Now, I'm giving this in generalities. I don't even know if that's a word. So, but the caveats are the in-betweeners. So like, hey, you already work for a restoration shop that does sandblasting. You work for a powder coater that does sandblasting. You work for someone who can directly feed you the customers that you're going to need to make your dry ice business profitable for a long time. So you're going to have a lot of customers. You're going to have customers that could do a lot of restoration jobs. But if you live out in the sticks, you don't live in a metropolitan area, it's hard to get dry ice. Obviously, you have to do all this research beforehand. But again, time and efficiency concerns are the main drivers of this as well, of why I don't think dry ice is the future of detailing, because it's not that efficient at all. I saw them detail an engine bay. It was great. It was amazing how it looked. Eric was super excited about it. Obviously, I really like Eric. I remember him way back to his car products days and the early days of the podcast. And so he's very excited about it, rightfully so, but it's incredibly inefficient on the majority of cars that detailers are going to work on. So it was demoed on I think it was like a Suburban or a full-size SUV of some sort. And while it is effective, it is not efficient. So comparatively to if you're looking on a newer model car, if you're talking about an engine cleaning, though it is effective and it is safer possibly to do this dry ice, it takes 10 times longer, honestly, especially if you're just working it into a workflow. If your standard operating procedures for an engine detail are, degrease it, maybe agitate and scrub a little bit, pressure wash, let it dry while you're detailing the rest of the car, come back and dress the engine. You're talking probably under an hour, maybe even under half an hour total for that. If you're dry icing an engine, you're probably going to be there 2 hours, realistically, right? And so it's incredibly inefficient. Now, the argument is that you just go over it with the dry ice and you're done, right? You don't have to degrease it, come back. You don't have to, make sure it's all dry, all the water's out of any leaky spots. You don't have to worry about anything leaking, any water getting into where it shouldn't, any sensitive components. So maybe on an older model car, it would be a better option. But it is definitely not more efficient. Also saw it on the interior, and it's just, compared to a brush and an all-purpose cleaner or an interior cleaner, it is just not efficient. It is not an efficient way to clean stuff. It's not an efficient way to get tar off the side of the car. It is just not efficient. Now, with that being said, it will do things that simply scrubbing and no amount of scrubbing will ever fix or do or get to. And that's like the undercarriage areas of the car. Something that's been just soaked with oil forever. Maybe it's showing signs of wear. Like I said, the floor pan, inside the wheel wells, maybe calipers, the really, really intricate little parts of the car is where dry ice definitely excels and is definitely way better than normal detailing. But for the vast majority of detailing a car, and if you're talking about, again, cash flow, seeing that customer multiple times a year, detailing is still, you're going to make way more money detailing for a way lower barrier to entry. And so, but where dry ice really takes the cake is those sensitive areas. If you're really looking to get a bolt to look like it used to look originally, no amount of cleaning and scrubbing is going to get that bolt to look perfect like it would with dry ice. So that is where dry ice definitely takes the cake. So from a time management perspective, especially if you have a shop with employees, now that's another barrier and another liability, to be honest, is that you have to get your employee trained on this. And then you have to make sure that, because this machine is powerful and expensive and could actually cause some serious damage, just like regular detailing could as well. Really have to be careful with that employee, and you really have to make sure that you trust them and that they actually know what they're doing, which may also require you actually paying them a little bit more money, which would then in turn go into your cost of doing business and increase that a little bit. So I do think there is a niche market, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, with the restoration. It's currently being utilized more so in that market, and it's even trickling down to people in that restoration market knowing it. There's a couple of dry ice only shops by me in Southern California that are doing this for this restoration market, which I think is the current market for it. So if you have access to a restoration shop, like for me, I used to work for a Porsche 356 restoration dealership. That would probably be a great add-on service. But what I'm seeing is that dry ice is being used as the main service, not an add-on service. So you're never going to convert someone that comes in. Never say never. Not going to say that. It's going to be a lot more difficult to convert someone who's coming in for maybe a basic detail to convert them over to this dry ice engine bay cleaning, right? We already have a hard enough time convincing people of ceramic coatings, upgrading the paint protection. Maybe you already have a hard enough time with PPF. You do not need to go to now we're dry ice blasting your engine for $500. Right? That is going to be an extremely difficult upsell. Not to say that it'll never happen, just very difficult. So what I'm seeing is dry ice as a standalone service that people are actually searching out, finding, and then purchasing. Not I came in for a detail and now I want my car dry iced, right? And we saw this a little while ago with steam, with steamers coming out. I just thought of this. Steamers were coming out, and a lot of people thought they were going to clean the outside of their car with steam, but when it's all said and done, it's just not efficient. It just isn't. Do you get a better result? Yes, sometimes, but not enough times to outweigh and justify the cost of buying that gigantic steamer that is capable of cleaning the outside of a car, right? So you'd rather opt for the VX5000 because you're going to use it on the interior. It's about $1,000 or $1,100, and it's going to get the job done for what it does. And there is a good value to price ratio. Now, the problem that dry ice has coming forward, and I think it'll eventually come down, is the value to price ratio is off. And that's why it's not getting adaptation into the detailing space, right? It is way too high priced and the value is seemingly way too low. So then you have this huge spread and people can't see it. They don't care what you say, they just can't see it, right? It's not going to increase revenue enough. And they even talk about this. The goal is to have this paid off in the first year. If that's the goal, to have it paid off in the first year, it's probably going to take a couple years to pay it off. So you got to have a long runway. Just something to consider, right? And so, yeah, I think it would be interesting maybe even on the podcast to have someone who is doing dry ice only for restoration market on the podcast to bring their insight, someone who's actually doing it. I am talking a little bit out of my depth here with dry ice, but it's just my personal experience and playing with it and seeing it. You also have to have gloves and glasses and some additional PPE, probably that we should honestly be wearing anyway in the detailing space. But again, it's just a big barrier to entry. So I think some things that could bring this down, again, I talked to that price to value ratio, as that gap shrinks, like it will, of course, because technology gets better, more competitions enter the space, it becomes a red ocean, right? So I'm really into this blue ocean strategy book right here. So right now, dry ice is definitely a blue ocean. There is not a lot of competition out in that. If you think about the blue ocean strategy versus red ocean, blue ocean, if you're out in the middle of the ocean, nothing's around. You're the only logical choice. Similar to when I started the Auto Detailing Podcast in 2014, I became the only logical choice because I was the only choice, right? And so in 2014 through maybe like 2016, if you wanted to listen to a podcast on detailing, I was the only option, right? That is called the blue ocean. Now, in 2023, going into 2024, you have a lot of different choices for podcasts, right? That would be called a red ocean. The detailing podcast space has become a red ocean, okay? And what happens when things become a red ocean? We're seeing it also with ceramic coatings right now. Very red ocean, especially from SEMA, and I've done previous podcast episodes on that. Very red ocean right now in the ceramic coating market. What that does is it brings the price down of everything. So right now, as the dry ice is in this blue ocean, not too many people are adapting to it. I'm sure there are companies working behind the scenes to bring down the barrier to entry to a lot lower. So as that lowers the cost of entry, maybe the cost of getting dry ice delivered, as more people buy these machines, those companies are selling a lot more dry ice to smaller companies. That may bring down the barrier to entry. As that happens, there may be an increased demand for that. So then you have the price to value shrinking, and then you have the demand rising from what it is now, and then you have kind of like market equilibrium, I guess it would be called, in the space. And that is where I think detailers may then jump on the bandwagon and become, use it as an add-on service or an alternative. Maybe if there's like an eco-friendly way to it. Again, it's just inefficient. So sometimes being eco-friendly or waterless with detailing is already inefficient. And so just to be any more inefficient than that, it's really hard to just be, a pressure washer and some chemicals, right? And so, but if there are some advancements or some unique techniques that come out of dry ice with detailing, that again could elevate it. So then you have barrier to entry coming down, some new techniques or strategies coming into it, raising the demand for it again, but we're definitely going to need to have a bigger demand for it so that these companies could sell more machines to increase their profitability at a lower price point, right? So I think it's possible, and my prediction is that it could be part of the future of detailing, but in my opinion, as of right now, it is definitely not the future of detailing. And unless you have that very specific roadmap of where and how you can market this, I would be very hesitant to make the investment in it for a regular run-of-the-mill detailing business. And so, but what happens a lot is that people get shiny object syndrome, right? The newest, latest, and greatest, and the market, and especially the detailing market, has been in this like, shiny object syndrome, where we always want the latest and greatest. And for the past 5 years, it's been the latest and greatest ceramic spray or the latest and greatest ceramic coating to apply, right? And so we've been in this market, but what has happened is this market has turned into a red ocean. So the competition is very, tight. And for us as detailers running and operating a detailing business, we're seeing this where the price is coming down. No long are the days of the $2,500 ceramic coating. If you're still getting that, congratulations. But as more detailers enter the space, because the ceramic coatings become easier and easier to apply, more detailers take advantage of that and say, shoot, I'll do it for $600 or I'll do it for $800, and it drives the cost down. Because then that same customer that wanted to spend $2,500 with you can now spend $800 and get it done somewhere else. Is it the same? Probably not. But is it close enough? Probably. Or maybe not. I don't know. But it drives the market down, right? As a market gets more congested, the price comes down. And so I do think it can be part of a detailing business of the future, but time will tell on that. So, but the hard part with that is you got to have the steady flow of customers. And so having this shiny object syndrome, the problem is that we're looking for our savior to be in a product, not in ourselves. And so what we need to do as detailing business owners, at least I think we need to do, or as any business owner, is we need to change and adapt to the market. We need to be aware of the dry ice, aware of it. I'm aware of it. I've seen it. I'm not ready to jump on the train yet because it didn't vibe with me right away. However, I am still remain completely focused on getting customers, growing my following, growing my online presence, because by growing a following, it doesn't matter what comes out, I'll be able to take that on and then talk about it or adapt to it, right? And so my theory on my online presence forever is like I can grow a following and then it doesn't really matter what the market does or wants to do or offers. I can jump in at any point and bring this to my audience in my own unique voice, as long as I have that following. So the same is true with your customers and with your detailing. If you know how to get customers, it doesn't matter if you start to incorporate dry ice or not, because you know how to get more potential customers. And so you can just go out and get more customers, which is always the answer. Just go get more customers. So for me right now, social media is changing a little bit. Videos are adapting. The algorithms are changing and adapting. And so it's what used to work is not working anymore. And a lot of us in this creator space are talking about this, of what used to work isn't quite working anymore. And it's very frustrating because you like to find a structure, right? I like to find a structure for my videos and then I work within this box. But when that stops working and your reach isn't as great, you have to come out of the box and then adapt to whatever the new thing is. You just have to find the new thing, right? But it's always a good idea to try to find the new thing that's going to lead to more customers. And so the same principle is true for your detailing business or whatever business you may be in. The lifeblood, the cash flow, everything comes from getting new customers and then maintaining a relationship with your existing customers. So that brings up a whole nother podcast that we could probably talk about, but nurturing your existing customers, because it's easier to sell to someone that you've already sold to in the past, because chances are they already know, like, and trust you. So making sure you have some way to communicate or talk to your past customers is imperative. Luckily, we all have phones, so we can probably just dig through our phone and find our past customers. If we don't have them in kind of a centralized place, like a CRM or a customer relationship management software or QuickBooks or Square, but having a quick way to communicate with them is essential for the lifeblood of your business as well. Because if you do take on dry ice in the future, and here's where having a steady flow of past customers and new customers comes in, if you do decide to incorporate dry ice into your business, then you can text your clients, text your past customers and say, hey, are you working on a restored car? Are you working on a restoration? Are you working on an old car with sensitive components? Are you blah, 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 blah? And you can talk to the customers that you already know, like, and trust, or rather that already know, like, and trust you, right? And then at the same time, I think you always need to have an ongoing outreach. I'm constantly trying new things to get new customers, I'm constantly doing that while nurturing my existing base of customers. So I try to talk to my podcast people, right, who have listened for years and years and years. And I also try to do things to reach new customers, new followers, new people that may be interested in my content. So yeah, with that said, that is that. So I want to thank you for listening, obviously, for a half an hour of me, rambling on. But I really want to know, do you think dry ice is the future of detailing? Am I completely wrong in this? I'd love to hear your opinion, your thoughts, what you think about it. So leave a comment, send me a message, send me a DM, whatever. But I'd love to hear where I was kind of off base. I'd love to hear, was I spot on? Chances are I could be spot on. These are just my opinions. These are just what I see. I always leave a high percentage where I could be completely wrong, because that's just, I've been completely wrong in the past, been completely right in the past, but I just, leave it for that. So thanks for listening. Thanks for following along. Of course, appreciate it. I will catch you guys on the next episode. Don't forget, check out the Detailing Discord. I talk about stuff just like this. I talk about products that I'm testing, samples that I get, all kinds of fun stuff over in the Detailing Discord. It's completely free. It's just a community group. Just go to autodetailingpodcast.com/Discord. And if you join, thank you very much for supporting the show and the channel. And with that, I will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.